Hi everyone, it's the Rangers review. It's a delayed Rangers review, and it is not my fault, nor is it Blair Malloy's fault. We're sorry, we're a little bit behind. The issue today is that we lost Eric Clark in the warm up, injured in the warm up. So Blair has manfully stepped up last minute. Blair, apart from being bleary eyed, are you quite well?
Yes. Didn't expect to be back on this morning, but it is
Yeah.
always a delight to talk to the viewers midweek to discuss all things Rangers. I am the last minute sub coming on in the warm up, so hopefully I can do a good job and the viewers aren't too disappointed not to see Derek this morning.
Yeah. This distance makes the heart grow fonder, doesn't it? And I'm sure that extends between the audience and Derek. A quick word, of course, as ever, for our podcast sponsors, Willow's Fencing. If you're looking to upgrade in the fence department, these guys are the best in the business. Relevant links are in the description. Thanks as ever to them for helping to bring you the, albeit slightly delayed today, Rangers review. Loads to get into, actually, Blair, and I know you were on yesterday, so but a lot has happened since then. We're going to talk about the Youth Academy. We have an interview with Liam Ross on the website today that ties in quite nicely to the news yesterday that Stevie Smith is remaining part of Danny Rule's backroom staff for the remainder of the season. It's transfer season, a couple of quiet days for Rangers, but I don't think it's going to stay like that. Our outgoings going to happen this week. We'll touch on that too and talk a little bit about an interesting transfer debacle that unfolded last night, which we will get into as well. First and foremost, let's start on Stevie Smith, because this is something that we've kind of anticipated if people haven't seen the news. Smith, who was obviously caretaker for one game, Rangers 2, Dundee United 2, that feels an absolute lifetime ago, when Rangers were in this indecisive spell of who was going to be their manager. He stayed on staff under Danny Rule. Danny Rule wanted some sort of club link or some local link on his staff. He had Chris Powell at Sheffield Wednesday, who hadn't played for Sheffield Wednesday, but obviously a hugely respected figure in the English game. Danny Rule spoke to other potential candidates, but basically Smith has impressed him the most, and crucially, as we'll come on to when discussing the academy today, Blair, he provides that link too. I don't think you will see many people who begrudge Stevie Smith this opportunity. He's been at the academy since 2020. Always a great guy to deal with, and basically seems like he's taken his opportunity, and Danny Rule is happy with his lot until the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. It feels like only yesterday that was one of the major discourses in this season, as who was going to be the former Rangers man that was going to come in and assist Danny Role and be part of this backroom staff. I remember it seemed to be one of the pressing questions at every press conference, and maybe that is a little bit of a sign of the times that is really the biggest thing we had to talk about maybe 3 or 4 months ago. That everyone was incredibly interested about who this perhaps Rangers link would be, and now, given the job that Danny Rule has done, it's kind of faded into the background a little bit, and people
Yeah.
hadn't really been talking about it too much. People had been sort of believing in the job that Rule was doing and charging this sort of Rangers man, so to speak, in the dugout wasn't as quite important as it had been, especially in the conversations anyway. But it was obviously been bubbling away under the surface that he did want that sort of Rangers link. As you said, Stevie Smith, he's been involved with the first team for a while, ever since that game that he took charge in interim, the Dundee United game at Ibrox. He's still kind of stayed in and around the first team. And by all accounts, as far as I understand, Danny Rule's been very impressed with him. He came in and he seen him as a really good option. He seen him as a really good coach. And from my own personal perspective, I was really impressed with Stevie Smith as well. I got to interview him a couple of times in and around that time, leading up to that
Yeah.
Dundee United game, and just after Russell Martin had left the club. And he came across really well. He came across really calm, really balanced. He gave that impression that he knew what the club was all about. He's obviously been in and around the club for a long time, obviously playing there in the mid 2000s, and then carried on as a coach through the youth development. So I think it seems like a natural choice. It seems like a natural progression for Stevie Smith to join in that first team coaching role. And I think that I know there was a lot of clamour for guys like potentially Neil McCann, Billy Dodds, guys like that, but they're obviously now in managerial positions, so that kind of ruled them out of the running a little while ago. So I think that Smith has deserved this opportunity to take on that role. He's obviously one who's trusted by Danny Rule. And I think I don't think there's any doubt that he understands exactly what being at Rangers is all about, exactly what these players will be going through and what kind of attitude they need to have to be successful. So I think if you're wanting someone that's going to be that link man between the culture of the club and Danny Rule, who's relatively new into it, then I think he's a great choice.
Yeah, and I guess that I think there can be an element of tokenism around these discussions, that you need someone who knows the club, but clearly you do need people who know the club within the club. But you just need people who, I think, like Smith, have completely earned that opportunity working in the academy, as I say, since 2020. You look at so many big clubs, and especially in Germany, where they utilize ex players and they have them involved, and they pair them with other people who are maybe have had more of a career in certain positions to get the best out of them. And that's something that I think you've seen Andrew Kavanagh lean into a little bit more, even just in the, I think Mark Haley was speaking about it on his podcast with Derek, meeting with ambassadors more regularly and having that touch point. So I think it makes sense. And I think the link to the academy, there's an interview that people can read with Liam Ross on the website today. It was at the 19s game earlier in the week, and really interesting. But Blair, I'll let people read it instead of trying to kind of depict the whole piece. But one of the things he was saying is that Rangers scrapped the B team, and now the SFA loans agreement means that players can go on loan from the under-19s if they're a Scotland international, as well as playing for the academy. The idea being you just need to expose players to first team football quicker. And the fact that this actually decision was taken, though, to scrap the B team before that came into place, it was this time last year. And the idea being you need to just expose your best players to the first team earlier in training and in games. You saw it with Zebedee Lawson coming off the bench against Annan. Obviously, Kyle Glasgow and Ashton Scally were unable to because of this rule about 15-year-olds not being allowed to play in the Scottish Cup, which seems mind-blowing given you've got, is it Max Dowman, who's the Arsenal 15-year-old who's played in like the Champions League and Premier League? So that seems slightly regressive.
He was still in school and he was playing in the Champions League.
Yeah, but interesting conversation with Liam Ross, who's basically trying to say what we're trying to do is get these our talented young players like Kyle Glasgow or Zebedee Lawson to train with the first team earlier, but then also to play earlier, because there's no point in what Rangers had with the B team, which was glorified friendlies and players who were like 21, 22. It's too late. I think that's not a young player. That's only still a young player in Scotland. And one of the interesting details he was saying is not only now are the 19s the one making up the numbers in training with the first team instead of the B team, but what Danny Rule has actually got them doing is mirroring the opponent quite often coming up. So, for example, if Rangers play, he said, St Mirren or Hearts, what the 19s will do is they will be sent clips from the analysis department so that they set up like a St Mirren or a Hearts within reason, so that you've kind of got, I guess, for the first team, that simulation of what it's like to try and break this team down or keep the pressure on a team who always plays the ball in behind, etc., etc. So his point of view is, look, if we've got players out on loan playing men's football where it means something, they're also being developed tactically and technically with the youth academy, and they're doing this with the first team. That is better and gives them a better chance of because of the early exposure of what we did before. That's a bit of a monologue. I'll let people read the piece if they want, but I think we can all agree that we'd like to see an effective academy structure in place. Moving on, transfers, Blair. It's been about 20 minutes since Rangers signed someone. Are you feeling twitchy? Do you feel like Johnny did at the start of the window where you just need someone else in yesterday?
I refer back to, I can't remember who posted it, a comment under one of Chrissy's pieces when he broke the news that Andreas Skov Olsen was going to sign this massive news that we'd all been waiting for. And this one fella commented, going, "More, Chris, we want more. This isn't enough."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like a kid at Christmas not happy with one or two presents. You want 10 or 12.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's obviously we're closing in on the end of January now. All the chat is that Rangers aren't done. That we expect Rangers to maybe go again. And do a little bit more before it's over. And then yesterday is a very typical example of Scottish football, just throwing up all sorts of interesting narratives, throwing up all sort of interesting side plots.
yeah.
This striker whose name escapes me currently, but I'm sure you've got it there.
Thomas
Who
Kavankara. Yeah, should we
Yes,
clear it up, Blair? Should we clear it up? So
yeah.
this is this.
I'll give a little bit of context.
Yes.
I sent you a link yesterday in the middle of the afternoon saying there's this rumor doing the rounds on social media, to Rangers and Kevin Cara.
Yeah.
You very quickly rubbished that link and said he's not coming to Rangers. And then a couple of hours later, I checked my phone again, and apparently he's signing for Celtic. So there you go. There we go.
Yeah, this is why this is why we only publish stuff that we've absolutely checked. It was actually in the
Yeah,
newsletter
yeah,
we put out, Blair, that I don't know I don't know how this has come about, but how the link to Rangers has happened, whether it's been that the original source has linked the wrong Glasgow club, I'm honestly not
yeah,
entirely sure. But as you say, we had it in the newsletter that was a link that we understood sources close to the player and the club to be not true. And how how the day materializes probably tells you what went wrong at the start of that story. But listen, it's why we only publish stuff when we're absolutely sure that it's going to happen. And it didn't fit Blair with this is a big physical striker, someone who probably needs to play football, and what Rangers have, it doesn't fit the profile of striker that we think Rangers will go for if they do go for another forward. We can talk about links in Scotland, which I know people are kind of discussing a lot at the moment. But what Rangers have done so far, as we understand it, is the first half of the window is about being proactive. And to their credit, getting in 3 targets by January 15th, 16th, 14th, whenever it was, that's pretty good going. You got through the first games, which was a difficult fixture list to navigate, especially after Hearts away. If you'd said you'll have these 3 players and you'll have won 5 games in the league by this point, I think everyone would have absolutely bitten your hand off for that. And then this week, again, in some of the conversations we were having last week, was said to be more about trying to get some players out the door. One link which is maybe still got a bit of a way to go, but for example, we know that there's interest in Kieran Dowell from Hull City. He's obviously played in England for the majority of his career, but getting the likes of him and others out the door doesn't just happen. Obviously, it's difficult with wages,
yeah,
with trying to line it up with the interested parties, and then maybe towards the end of the window would allow Rangers to be more opportunistic. I still think Rangers will sign Blair, but I don't think they'd be in a position where if they don't sign, they feel we've missed a big target. I think because of the way they've navigated the window so far, it allows them to kind of strike and have a little bit of a luxury of not rushing and trying to get Skov Olsen over the line on deadline
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Does that make
yeah,
sense? I know we've been speaking privately, just because that's what we speak about off camera as well, about whether it's a number 6 or a
yeah,
number
yeah,
9 that Rangers need next. A comment here, someone saying it's quite easy to say we need another Stephen Davis, but realistically, it's hard to buy a player of that quality in the 6, even with our new budget. I know you spoke about this yesterday with Derek. We had a great piece with Stephen Davis on the website yesterday. If I'm to put you on the spot and Rangers are to only sign a number 6 or a number 9, who are you? Regardless of outgoings, let's say that. Who are you going for?
So a couple of points in there. If you go back to the big striker from yesterday, I think you're right in saying that it didn't necessarily fit Rangers' profile of what they were looking for in a striker. He seems like a little bit of I would say a gamble, a guy who's out of favour, out of form, and needs somewhere to play his football and be given a bit of an opportunity. And I don't think that's what Rangers need at the minute. I don't think Rangers need a guy who is looking to maybe prove himself and come in and be the main man, because Rangers, if they need someone up front, they need a proven goal scorer, they need a poacher. If I was to choose between the two, obviously, as you said, I did speak to Stephen Davis yesterday. A big thank you to everyone who read that piece and gave me some feedback on that piece. It's been very popular, and people have been very nice about it. So thank you to everyone that's had a look at it. But Stephen Davis made the point himself that Danny Rule almost doesn't really play with a number six, and it's almost as if, does he really want one? Because of the way that the midfield have been sort of covering for each other in recent weeks, and how the midfield have all been working in tandem together, and all been making each other look like better players. Is that really necessary that you go out and go, okay, let's put a massive proportion of the budget into this very specialised position, when instead we do have 3 or 4 or maybe 5 midfielders who can all maybe do a little bit of a different job in there?
Yeah, and I think Chukwuani is something we've said a few times. This is being described to me as more of a, if Skov Olsen is more about just a level of player that should work here and now. You know, he's not coming in to show his best form if he signs permanently. Rangers would quite like him to, I think, win them a league title, or certainly play a big part in it. If Tua Romans is about succession planning at left back, but also just Rangers needed 2 left backs, and the fact that they entered the summer window with exited with only 1 left back was a bit mad. Then Toshi Chukwuani is more of a player trading, succession planning in the number 8 position, because you've got Nico Raskin and Mohamed Diamande both entering the final 2 years of their contract in the summer. As a profile, he can play as number 6. I don't think he's a player who is at his best. And Danny Rowe keeps speaking about the size and physicality he'll bring to the Rangers midfield. And again, something we wrote last week, if you look at the correlation between what Leeds have done and what Rangers have done in trying to beef up their squad, I think there's a clear link there. But I don't think he's the kind of sitting, dictating number 6 that, you're right, Rule has played without it. But my question would still be, Blair, Rangers haven't scored an abundance of goals in open play or anything like it. And I still think profile-wise, especially because of that injury to Connor Barron, that's probably the priority. I still think if you've got a game at Ibrox where you're struggling to break teams down, and you know, your set pieces aren't working, you still lack a tempo setter in midfield. Stephen Davis is admittedly quite a high bar in that regard, isn't he? But
yeah, I made that point in the piece that there's been a lineage of sort of holding midfielders at Ibrox, and it's a position, perhaps more so. There's a couple of positions at Rangers that are heralded as quite high. I would say the goalkeeper is one of them. Rangers have always had a good goalkeeper, and the fans expect a good goalkeeper. I think a centre forward is another that Rangers have always had a really good number 9, and they hang their hat on having a really good number 9. The fans do, and a number 6, and throughout the years, Rangers have always had a really strong number 6. In that the piece I mentioned, Graham Souness, I mentioned Ian Ferguson, I mentioned Barry Ferguson and Stephen Davis. Like, this is a succession plan through the years where all the successful Rangers teams have always kind of have that sitter in the middle of the park. So,
yeah,
as Davis admits himself in that piece, it's something that the fans have come to expect. It's something that the fans have come to think, we absolutely have to fill that position. But I don't think it's as important right now as you say. I know that we do a lot of these Saturday shows where we talk tactics, and we kind of go behind the numbers, and the creativity hasn't been there. I don't think there's any getting away from that. I think that the lack of chances being made is clear, pretty abundant to see when you actually break down the numbers behind it. That is where I think Skov Olsen will make the difference. I think that's what he's been brought in for. I think he's been brought in to be that creative outlet and to be the man who's going to make these chances. If you were giving me one position tomorrow that Rangers could sign a player in, I would have to still go centre forward. I still think that Yeah, I still think that Rangers are missing a real natural goal scorer who, when the chips are down, are going to take those chances. Actually, I know you asked me to write something yesterday for the website, and I think in it I said that if I could invent a time machine and bring back Jermaine Defoe for one last dance, that would be the absolute perfect solution to my scenario here. I just think that having that to get Rangers over the line, having that sort of bona fide goal scorer and someone who wants to score more than they want to take their next breath. I think that's what Rangers would really benefit from.
That's a good line. Want to score more than they want to take the next breath. Yeah, I would like both in an ideal world. We're going to get to some comments because there's a lot of people getting in touch as ever. I think you need both. My slight pushback would be that, not as we covered on the show on Monday, every single striker has actually overperformed their expected goals. Miovski, can he score goals domestically? Yes, I think with more chances. Chermiti, can he improve as a player? And have we seen he can do it? Yes. So in an ideal world, I think what you get is you're able to shift on probably Danilo. You're able to shift on the likes of Rothwell and Dowell. You probably spend a bit of money at the base of midfield, maybe not the likes of money that it would take to get someone like Silas Anderson, who's someone that we know Rangers like, and we spoke about him at the start of the window, but that would take quite a lot of money in a month where a lot of money's already been spent. But maybe you do a little bit more forward planning there, and you just get someone in who, as you say, again, Defoe is a high bar, but that profile of isn't maybe going to play every single game, but is more of a natural goal scorer. And I agree with you that if you look at the complement of Rangers team, Miovski probably should be this, but there's not a lot of players who just have a nose for goal. A Scott Arfield kind of will arrive in the box, that type of profile. Let's get to some comments before we get shouted at in the comments. Blair, Charleston is in Tenerife in the sun listening to the Rangers review. That is brilliant. It's actually an okay day here, but certainly not very warm.
Looking
Stuart
outside,
is on his,
I can see a little bit of sunshine. It's
yeah,
slowly peeking through. So I'll be out and about in that just after we're off here. So hopefully it's still freezing right enough. Let's not beat about the
yeah.
bush. It's still ridiculously cold here in Scotland.
Yeah, it is. Although in our side note, but in Rangers Review HQ, they've turned the radiators up to about 1,000,000 degrees. So you and I have been sitting in the office with the window open,
Yeah,
haven't
we
we?
lost Derek Clark. You nearly lost Joshua Blair the other day as well.
Yeah. Just to be clear, we didn't lose Derek Clark. We just lost him to Wi-Fi issues in a hotel in
Yes.
some Stevenage, I think he's in somewhere in England.
For those
Let
of
us
you
know.
worried in the comments, he is entirely fine. He's
Yeah,
entirely healthy. He will
he's
be back.
he's his usual self. Stuart is on his honeymoon. Congratulations, Stuart. He's listening in. Where is he? On the beach in Perth. Incredible. Love that. Not making me jealous at all. Day in the life. How many players will go this week, lads? I still think it's hard to tell. Some conversations I was having this week that there's hopes it will busy up towards the end of the week, but obviously the difference in outgoings compared to incomings, Blair, is you can be the protagonist, I guess, with incomings, but you've kind of got to rely on others to do that for outgoings.
Yeah,
But Rangers
yeah.
definitely working to get some players out on loan. Daniel happy with Finlay Curtis. I thought he was good against Annan, pretty creative too. Chris wrote yesterday that he is going to be on his way to Kilmarnock. Our understanding is that might not happen immediately. It might be a few days before you see Curtis in a Kilmarnock shirt. But I think a loan deal is what he needs to get playing. Finn asks in shouty language, so just to clear this up, no, that is not true, Finn. That is just social media. Good to get to the bottom of that. Is there a presser today? There is a presser at about 2 o'clock, slightly later because Europa League tomorrow, Blair, which we haven't talked about. I don't know if we will talk about because it feels very inconsequential. Stephen still doesn't think Rangers have enough goals in the team. I don't think many people would disagree with that. David wants a dominant leader of a centre back. Don't think you'll. I think that's something that Rangers will do in the summer as opposed to January. But let's wait and see. Blair Maswanisi, I know you spoke about him yesterday. He's a name that Martin O'Neill was obviously at Motherwell on Saturday. I think there's a growing expectation that Motherwell might get a bid for this player in this window. As we said yesterday, our understanding on it is that there's been no bid from Rangers, kind of no formal contact over the player. I think there isn't, and this is something you saw them do as we've discussed at length under Niels Coppin. They did look more readily at the Scottish market. Lyle Cameron, Conor Barron, Josh Mulligan, all stories that we've covered before. And I think it's something that they should keep doing. I think Elliot Watt could play for Rangers. Kieran Bowie, I don't know if I'd pay 6.5 million for him, but we had the story up a couple of weeks ago that Rangers were asked to keep abreast of any developments there. And Maswanisi, I think, would be cheaper than that. My question is, although he's a goal scorer, and I think a very good player, do you think it's the type of profile Rangers need if they are going for a striker? Again, with the asterisks on it that at the moment we don't know of anything developing there. That could change, and we'll update you as and when we find out. But profile-wise, do Rangers need another kind of runner in behind? Do they have that with Miovski and others off the left wing up top?
Interesting on the Kieran Bowie point before I get into Maswanisi. As soon as the links start to come out, people get very excited. People start saying that, let's go and get Kieran Bowie. He could be the central striker, the man who leads the line for years to come. He then misses that gilt-edged chance against Dunfermline. Everyone says he's terrible. Let's not sign him. And it changes so quickly that players, you want them in, you want them out. I do think that 6.5 million, if it is to believe that is the fee that Hibs are quoting, is pretty steep. I think he's a player that has shown that he has got good potential, and I think that he has got some good moments, and I think he has got a lot about him. But I think that 6.5 million for Rangers at the minute, again, you're kind of tarring him with the Chermiti price tag brush there. And I think if Kieran Bowie came into Rangers at £6.5 million, most of the squad, most of the fans are thinking, okay, this guy's going to score 20 goals for us this season.
Yeah.
And it might not work out like that. It might not be the case. He might need what actually might be better for his development is a move down south where he's not the main man, where he's sort of the second striker to in a championship team or some such, or maybe even lower end Premier League where he comes in and out the team. But I think that, I don't know. Time would only tell. It's a hypothetical, but it's a lot of pressure and a lot of money for someone that's not done an awful lot in Scotland yet. He's had maybe a good 6 to 9 months, so I wouldn't be throwing all that money at him.
I also think Blair. Sorry to jump in, but I also think he's quite a similar profile to Chermiti. You've already spent a lot of money on a striker who you want to play. He's also 2 years older, and that was something that I think came into the conversation about Penrice and Romans. Romans is 22, Penrice is 27. It just makes sense if you've got a couple of years to sign a younger player. I interrupted you. Continue your thought process. Sorry.
Not at all. And on Maswanisi, I guess. I spoke about this yesterday. I said that I would be surprised if he wasn't on the radar of both sides of the old firm. I think that Rangers, the way that they are going about their business now, and the sort of the operation that Kavanagh has put in place, I think they will have enough bodies and enough eyes across Scotland to know that Tawanda Maswanisi exists. Let's not pretend that people at the club will be surprised to find out about this guy who's scoring 15 goals so far this season. People at the club know who he is. Let's put that to bed right now. Whether they actually go in and make an offer for him is a different thing. And there is a lot of the kind of talk that I'm hearing, and the kind of, this is from a fan's perspective, the kind of swell of public opinion is just go and buy him anyway because he's good, he weakens Motherwell, and it stops Celtic getting him. And that's kind of fine, that's okay. But it also doesn't really address the fact of whether Rangers actually need him and where he would actually fit into this Rangers team. Now, do I think he would fit in? I do think he would fit in this Rangers team. I do think that we obviously need to start contending with the idea that Mikey Moore is going to be leaving in the summer. He's going to go back down to England, and Mikey Moore has been one of the biggest creative outlets in this team this year and has really looked like one of the biggest threats in this team. So I do think that you have to think about that succession plan already. And Maswanisi looks like he could potentially be a player that could fill in his boots on that side. In terms of, do I think that if, say, for example, Celtic bought Tawanda Maswanisi tomorrow, does that mean they're now going to go and win the league? No. Does Rangers buying him mean that they're going to go win the league? No, I don't think he's the kind of player that's going to tip the entire balance of the league title. But what I do think is that whoever does get him, if it is indeed either side of the old firm, they've taken a little bit of a scalp over the other one. And I think it is a little bit of a return to the old school way of doing your business of, okay, this guy's clearly the best player in Scotland or one of the best players in Scotland right now. Let's go and take him for a couple of years and let's try and keep him on this development path because he's under our noses. Teams in England maybe haven't quite caught on to him yet. Let's go and do the business early, get him in. And at £3 million, the way that Rangers have been throwing money about so far this window, £3 million doesn't seem like a lot of money at all.
Yeah, and as you say, that there is that. I think last summer there clearly wasn't a focus on the Scottish market. The fact that you go back to Mulligan, who, again, I don't think Mulligan's the best player in the league, but I think on a free transfer, it was an absolute kind of no-brainer. And the fact the Rangers didn't follow up on that, compared to maybe being a little bit more attentive to the Scottish market this window, shows some learning, even if maybe that's a lesson that should have been learned before. But yeah, we'll keep our eye on that one and update if there is anything to update on. But as we say at the moment, no contact there, and I think like this striker story shows yesterday. Yeah, so sometimes social media noise can create a swell around such matters. Stuart says, at what point do we start paying players off? The issue with that, Blair, obviously, is that players just say, well, pay me the rest of my contract, and then you don't get any sort of contribution that you might. But that is not to say that Rangers are not trying to move players out the door. Quickly before we go, I know I think Chris is on tomorrow, and we'll look a little bit at the Ludogorets game. Are you playing a strong team in that, or are you not? I personally am not. I'm rotating.
Yeah, I think there'll be a couple of changes. I don't think it'll be because I think Rowe will be very aware of making sure it's not a momentum killer. Because if Rangers
True.
play a complete second string side and then get beat, then it could put a little bit of a dampener on things. But because you know the way that things change at Ibrox in terms of the mentality, in terms of the narrative, one defeat can all of a sudden set the alarm bells ringing. So I think that Rule will be aware of that. I think he'll want to come out of it unscathed. I think you offer them a draw right now and everyone coming out of it fit. I think he takes that. Just because it's not a massively important game in the grand scheme of things. But I do think that he'll maybe give a couple of these guys, like you mentioned there, like a Dowell, like a Matondo, like a Danilo. Maybe give them a couple of minutes and try and get them in the shop window a little bit. I mean, this is the only way you're going to get someone to take these guys, and they're actually out playing and showing what they can do. I think that obviously, as you said, there has been interest in Kieran Dowell, so there's maybe not so much of a need to put him into the first team. I think there's a couple of moving parts down south that are maybe holding up a little bit of a move for him, but that could materialise. But guys like Rabbi Matondo, I mean, if you want to get him out of the club, then you're going to have to give him some game time to get him back on the park. Because right now, if you're a suitor coming into Rangers, not John Suter as it were, a suitor as a potential buyer coming into Rangers, and you're looking
Yeah.
at Rabbi Matondo, you don't really know what kind of player you're getting because no one's really seen him.
You obviously can't play tomorrow because the European Scottish. I'm going to put that down to your lack.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that down to the fact that you've probably not had your
apologies.
coffee yet. But I agree with you that that's why I came on. Like, you see, when you saw the lineup on Friday, you kind of looked at it twice and thought, "Oh, that is really who is left at 11." But you're right. I mean, in that game, Dowell was actually quite bright, wasn't he? Again, how much can you take from it given the level of the opposition? We'll see who Rangers can move on, Blair. I agree with you that it can't be a momentum. It shouldn't be a momentum killer tomorrow.
Yeah.
You've got Dundee weekend, then going away to Porto. You probably want a strongish team then because you're playing against Farioli, a name that has been talked to in association with the Rangers dugout before, and it's to my great sadness that he's not made it into it. And then you go away to Hibs. That Hibs game on the first feels so significant to me because it's transfer deadline day. The next day, Rangers obviously have this really good record since the last time they went to the capital, and then you have a lot of big games at the start of February. I think you've got Hearts in there, you've got Motherwell away. That's before the Old Firm in March, so it's business time this season, isn't it? And it's going to be intriguing to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. My apologies for forgetting that the European squad does not include all of the players. It's too early this morning.
Right. We'll blame Derek's Wi-Fi for it. That,
Yeah,
you're
the,
still
the
standing in for him.
the point still stands that I do think that these kind of guys will need some sort of game time before the end of
Yes.
the season because, like I said, if you're trying to shift these players on, you need to show potential buyers what they're buying because I don't think that you really know what these players are anymore. You're buying a lot of hope, buying a lot of potential of what they could have been, which I think, ironically, is what Rangers did with Rabbi Matondo, and it just hasn't worked out at all. So, in terms of Thursday night, yeah, I think there is still a lot of good feeling around the business that's been done. There is a real positivity around Rangers right now. And I think that Rule will want to harness that. And I think he knows that, like I said, momentum is such a big thing in his arsenal right now. He may not have the best players, he may not have all the best things at his disposal, but what he does have is he has a confidence that is brewing, and he has a real feel good factor between the fans and the players that he's brought back. So I think it would be a bit foolish to just throw the game away and then pretend that you can just switch it back on to Dundee on Sunday. I think you need to come out of it fairly unscathed, and then set yourself up for another league game because these league games are coming thick and fast. And I think it's like all ex-Rangers players you speak to that have won titles. They just say it's another league game. You need to tick it off and you need to keep going. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. You just need to win it, and then you need to move on to the next one. And that's what it takes to win a title.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Right. Well, we'll obviously be with you every step of the way over these next few months. If you can subscribe on YouTube, that is a big help. And if you subscribe to the website, got an introductory offer, £4 for 4 months. That is the first and best place to get all of our content. We have a brilliant app where you can actually watch our YouTube feed in the app. You can bookmark content, etc., etc. All the links are below. Thanks for watching us on the slightly delayed morning briefing. Thanks to Blair for being here on his fine form as usual, despite the late call up. And we will make sure that Derek is given a fine or some such, Blair, for his pre-match injury as discussed. We'll be back later with press conference coverage. Danny Rule speaking at about 2:00, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Until then, have a great day. Thanks as ever for joining us. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.